Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, and this is Ker Nethalas Into the Midnight Throne solo playthrough. I'm playing a character Athena who is a Weapon Master, Gravecaller and Wraith at level 1. So she has currently 3 raised skeletons, and her last encounter she had defeated a Bloodstalker, which is her toughest encounter yet, that left her pretty banged up badly. So after looking through her stats, I've decided that Athena will need to do a camp rest. So switching back to her character sheet, she is currently at 2 out of 19 toughness, which is not great. Ideally, I would not want to go below 0 because it would then eat into her health points, and recovering the health points would be a lot tougher. So I'm gonna try to recover more toughness while she's still at a pretty decent level of toughness and health. She has 7 out of 11 sanity, which is still okay. Her exhaustion points, however, is a little bit concerning because it's 12 points right now, which means to say her toughness, her recovery for toughness would be 50% each time if it's at this score of 12. So ideally I'm going to bring it up to 10 and below. And her Lightsource is also at a very dangerously low level at 3 torches. Athena, however, she does have some oil lamps for her belt lamp, 3 of them. However, I think I'm gonna leave this as her last resort, her last sources of light for reserve, and I'm going to increase the number of torches to craft more torches while she can before using her belt lamps. So light source is super important in this game because if you have no light source, you'll be blinded and you will receive a penalty of -40 for all checks, which is as good as game over, I think. But I think on the other hand, looking at how your character deteriorates and degenerates would be quite fun to see as well, because I don't think I see this in many other games. If it's just death, it will be a quick death and then game over and you restart it over again. But in this case for Ker Nethalas, I think there are a lot of mechanics pertaining to death, and to, I believe there's a chapter on rotting and stuff like that, which is pretty interesting to see. But for today, I don't think we are going there. We'll save it for another day. So where is that? It's actually here, I believe. So yeah, so you will get the rot, and there's different stages of the rot: stage 1, 2, 3, all the way to stage 8, and which is pretty brutal in my opinion, and it's pretty graphic. So ideally I do not want to even venture into that, at least at this point in time, giving my character a little bit more mileage in terms of exploring and fighting and discovering treasures and loots and so on. Alright, so Athena also has 2 conditions, which is bleeding and poisoned, which she would really benefit from a medicine and bandage check. But however, she's at pretty low skill for medicine. Nonetheless, I think we can try that during her camp. So without further ado, let's do the camp right now. So before that, I would also want to take some time to talk about this player aid that I have downloaded from Discord. This is by Splurgy, so a big thank you for doing this, because when I did my first camp, it was pretty difficult to read from the various paragraphs. I think having a table here made it so much clearer, I think. So over here, there are various, it's categorized into activities, materials, exhaustion, and the modifier. And at the end, at the bottom over here, you can actually tabulate the total scores and then transfer that back into your character sheet, which is super useful. So thank you, Splurgy, once again. And of course, I also want to thank Seeker's Hollow for bringing this camp worksheet up. I've seen his latest play. He has made use of this player aid, which is why I went to download from Discord. Let's take a look over here of the activities on what I want to do. So first of all, I would need to do a barricade that would be +5 to my camp rule modifier. And this is really important because I do not want to have any encounters coming up after my camp. So I'm gonna use 2 crafting supplies over here. Of course, I would want to cook some cooking supplies so that I can have some rations as well. So I'm gonna create 2 rations over here. I'm gonna craft some torches, which will be actually 3. I'm gonna use 1 bandage to try to heal my bleeding condition, and I think that's it for Athena's camp this session. Alright, so let's take a look at the other column over here under Exhaustion. So that would be, for 2 barricades, I would have 2 Exhaustion. For 2 cooking supplies, I would have 1 Exhaustion. 3 crafting supplies would be 1 Exhaustion as well for the torches. And lastly, healing condition, which I'm going to use 1 bandage, that would be 1 Exhaustion as well. So that is a total of, that gives me a total of 5 Exhaustion points. Okay, so let me transfer these counts for Exhaustion points and materials in my character sheet. So over here for toughness, I would have regained back all my toughness. So every camp I do, I would regain all toughness provided that I have a ration. So I'm back to 19. I can recover sanity as well. So before that, let me flip to this page on camp. So it says here, regain 1 health. I'm at full health, so that's not necessary. And I regain a d4 sanity, so I'm going to roll my d4. I roll a 2, so I regain back 2 sanity points, bringing it up to 9 out of 11. Okay, and I can reduce my exhaustion by 10 points. So I'm going to reduce it by 10 points, so it's bringing it back to 2. Okay, and Lightsource, I would have 3 more new torches. Bring my total number of torches to 6. What's going to be deducted will be over here. I will have expended all my crafting supplies, turning to 0. Cooking supplies, I have used 2, that's 13 left. 5 bandages, I would have 4 left. Yes, I will be due to make my medicine check to see I can heal from the bleeding condition. And I think that should be about it. Okay, so let's do a medicine check to see if Athena can heal her bleeding condition. So she has a medicine score of 10. That's going to be tough, but nonetheless, let's give it a try. She rolls a 73, that's a fail, so that would mean that she has expended 1 bandage and she's unsuccessful at healing a condition, so she will still have the bleeding condition. The exhaustion points will cost me 5 exhaustion points. So let me go back to the page. So that would be a total of 7 exhaustion points she is currently at, which is still okay because she doesn't suffer from any effects at 7. So over here there's a table on page 78. Exhaustion points 0 to 10, no effects. 11 to 15, you heal half the amount of toughness from all sources. So that was where she was at. And now she is back at a safe level of 7 exhaustion points, which is great. So lastly, I would be required to roll a camp roll. I will be rolling a d20. So a 10 plus means a success. So over here I have a plus 10 modifier. And I do have also an item that helps with the camp rolls, which is her bedroll. It's a +1 to camp checks, so that's great. I'm gonna use that. So I'm gonna roll on the d20 to see if she succeeds. So let's see. She rolls a 14. That's a total of 24, which means she is successful in her camp check roll and nothing happened, which is great. Alright, so Athena has successfully finished her camp. And let's see if there's anything else that I've left out. Alright, so I've regained all my toughness. I have regained my 2 points of sanity. I have also reduced my exhaustion by the number over here, and also included the number of exhaustion points that she has incurred from this camp activity. So, alright, so Athena is back in good health, pretty good health, I would say. And right, she is still suffering from bleeding and poisoned. We will take care of that, but at the very least her toughness is back at 19 points, which is really substantial. This could mean a couple more games before she dies. And, oh yes, she has a couple of skills to upgrade bladed weapons, athletics and perception that was accumulated from her roll of doubles in these checks previously. So I believe there is a check that's required before she improves her skills. It's under character progression on page 60. So over here it says, every time you roll doubles when you make a skill check, you can mark the skill for improvement, regardless whether the check was a success or not. An improvement check can be done while resting in your camp. In order to make a skill improvement check, you must roll D100 above the skill's score. A success increases the skill by D4, rolling below increases it up by 1 up to a maximum of 80. So I will have to roll a D100 and it has to be above my current skill scores for these skills that I want to improve on. So this is my D100, so let's roll for bladed weapons first. I need to roll a 61 and above. I roll a 93, which is fantastic, which means a successful improvement check. And I would roll a d4 to see how many points I have increased the skill by. I roll a 4, which is fantastic, and I'm at 64 points for bladed weapon. And on to the next skill check, skill improvement check would be athletics. Yes, this is Athena's really poor. Actually, she's got pretty good athletics at 40, but she has been failing her door checks and so on, trying to bash through the door. So nonetheless, let's try to roll below 40. She rolls that's an 8, which is a fail. So that would be a 1 point improvement in her athletics, which is fine. Okay, next I will roll for her improvement check for perception. Her perception is currently at 50, and she has a modifier of +10 for perception. I'm gonna roll. So how many points do I need to roll? I need to roll above 50, because the modifier is not part of her natural skill stats in perception. She rolls a 69, which is a pass. Alright, so she will be rolling a d4 to see how many points of improvement she gets for perception. A 1, so I would basically improve it by 1 point. Her perception is now at 51 plus a 10 modifier, which is a total of 61. So there we are. I think we are good with the skill improvement checks. Because she has still bleeding and poison, she will need to suffer 1 point for each of these conditions that she go to. So we will see how we can overcome these conditions along the way. I believe that will be by a endurance check for poisoned, and for bleeding, unfortunately, I would need a potion or a bandage. After, I will need a bandage and medicine check to see if she can recover from bleeding. So right now she's over here in this room. We will attempt to go through this door and see what awaits from there. So here I have a player aid. This is done by me, and I have not used it yet. So I'm gonna try and see how it feels like to really use this, and see if I can just rely on this player aid without relying on the book itself. First of all, I will determine whether the door is locked or not by rolling on a d20. I roll a 11, which means it is unlocked. And if it is unlocked, I will have to roll and see if it is trapped by rolling on a d10. I roll a 7, it's trapped. So if it's trapped, I will have to roll for a trap's difficulty first by rolling on d8. It's indicated here, which I have some trouble remembering, the die that I need to roll for the various checks. So I think this is really helpful. I rolled a 3. It is an easy, so that's a +10 to the modifier. This tells you how difficult it is to spot the trap. So I'm going to roll on my perception, which is a +10 modifier. Now these things, I think it is intuitive for most D&D players. I have not really played D&D, but I do understand that for certain things requiring spotting what is the relevance and what are they being used for. So in this case, perception will be something like, how difficult or how easy it is to spot something, which is intuitive for us, most of the gamers out there. So I'm going to check on my perception, which is here. I have a perception of 51. So I will have to give it a +10. I will need to roll a 61, within 61 to pass the perception check with my D100. Okay, so here's my D100. I'm going to roll and let's see if I can pass the perception check. I roll a 44, which is a successful perception check. So over here it states, if I pass, I will go over here to this part. So my player actions would be, number 1, I can disarm the trap if I have a set of thieves tools, which I don't, or I can avoid the trap. However, if I manage to successfully avoid the trap, I can't search, I can't scavenge the room. And if I do re-enter, I would have to repeat the skill check at a +10 again. And the last action that I can consider taking would be to trigger the trap, which requires me to do a successful dodge at a -30, which is an impossible modifier. And I'll have to roll for tension, and then after that, I would have to resolve the effects of the trap if I'm not successful. So I'm looking at avoiding the trap over here. So I'm gonna roll on my D10 to see what trap it is. I roll 4, which means to say I will have to do a dodge skill check to avoid this trap here. So let me take a look at my dodge skill score. I'm at 25, which is pretty low. Do I have any modifiers that can improve it? Yes, I do. As a Wraith, I have my passive of using my acrobatic skill to avoid attacks or dodge traps. So I would definitely use my athletics because it's at 41. It's much higher than 25. So I'm going to use my athletics to attempt to avoid the trap. So I'm going to roll my D100. Hopefully I pass. I roll a 46. Oh, I'm 5 points off. So no choice. I think I have triggered the trap. So I will have to go back to page 105 to see the trap's effects. That is so bad, but that's worth a try. Okay, so I rolled a 4 earlier. So the trap's effects, this is what it entails. A salvo of small poisoned darts strike the character, who becomes poisoned unless they pass an endurance check. The darts deal 2d4 piercing damage. Okay, this is brutal. She is already poisoned. I think the poison is not cumulative. So I'm gonna resolve it from here. So I'll have to roll for an endurance check to pass it. Let's see Athena's endurance score. She's at 20. It's pretty low. Let's see. I roll a 44. That's a double. and I would put up my endurance check for skill improvement for the next time I camp. Okay, and back to this. So we have failed the endurance check. So the darts will deal a 2d4 piercing damage. So I have to roll 2d4s. I roll a 3, which converts to, I believe, a 1 point of damage. d4. I roll a 2, that is also 1 point. So in total, that is 2 poison damage dealt to Athena. Okay, so I have triggered a trap, and I would now need to roll for tension. So my tension die is at d6. I'm going to roll my tension die. I roll a 2. Okay, that's a downgrade to a d4, which is not looking good, but still okay. That's pretty fast. I think this really helped me to speed up the process a lot faster. I think it's pretty okay. So, not too bad. So in future, at the very least, if I do backtrack, I do not need to roll for a check again. I can also just pass through the door as I want. What's remaining for her next would be to open up the door and go through and into the next room or corridor, but let me see if she can perform any actions in terms of healing. Again, conditions on page 76. Any damage that persists after combat, such as bleeding, burning, or poison, it deals 1 direct damage, no rolling on damage dealt per room. So the next time I go into a new room, I will have to deduct 2 points, 2 toughness from Athena, 1 from the bleeding, and 1 from the poisoned. Okay, so now let's roll for the room or corridor. Okay, so let's take out the D100. It's a 21. 21 would be a corridor. So this is the corridor right here. A straight road with a fork to the right. Athena has 2 choices. She can continue moving up straight north, or she can take the fork to the right hand side. So I think we should just go straight. So I'm going to roll on the tension die, which is a d4. Hopefully no 1 or 2, otherwise there will be a growing darkness event triggered. I roll a 3, that's a pass. Fantastic. Next I will roll for an encounter. If it's a corridor, it means a roll of 15 plus would bring me to a combat encounter. If it's below 15, it would be no encounter. I rolled a 19, my goodness, so that's an encounter. I've been trying to avoid that ever since I bumped into the Bloodstalker. That was quite terrifying, so I'm really not trying to meet any more new enemies. At one point I was looking forward to that, but now I'm not, clearly not. So let's see, I will be rolling, but before that let's have a roll at the corridor description. I roll a 12, so that is description number 12. The tunnel is partially submerged in water, with small ripples disturbing its surface. The faint odor of decay permeates the air. Not great, it's sewage. I roll a 4, it's table B. And I roll a d20 to find out which of these encounters do I meet. I roll a 4. A Plague Bringer. That's interesting. I've fought the Plague Bringer before. Can I fight something else? Of course I can. Let me re-roll my d20. I roll a 2. A Necropede. This is the stuff of horrors. I think I'm excited to see what the Necropede is about. So, alright, let's meet the Necropede. This grotesque fusion of insect and cadaver is a chilling sight to behold. Its razor-sharp pincers and venomous stinger are imbued with necromantic energy, ensuring that those unfortunate enough to cross its path become lifeless vessels animated to carry out its malevolent will. The Necropede's presence is heralded by a stifling aura of dread, causing even the bravest hearts to tremble. Whispers of its unholy existence abound, as it is said to be the creation of a deranged sorcerer who sought to conquer death itself, now unleashed upon the world as a relentless harbinger of doom. It's an animal and undead. It's one of them. Awareness is 40. Health of 8. It's a serpentoid. Hit location, weak point would be its head. Armor 1 at the head. Combat skill of 30. Spoils will be under the resources table. Trait Venomous and Undead. It has Body Slam, which is physical, Soul Drain, magical, and Spinal Whip. Interesting. Alright, so Athena has 3 skeletons. She is well protected. She has an entourage with her. So let's roll for the oppose check first. We'll roll for Athena. And the Necropede awareness is at 40. Athena has a perception of 61. So let's see if she can get first strike. She rolls a 35, which is not too great. Let's see what the Necropede rolls. Necropede rolls a 82, so that's a fail for the Necropede. So Athena will take the first turn. Before that, is there any particular mastery that she can use? Let me review that. So she is Weapon Master, which is fine. Evasive Strike. So it's good for her defense check for the next one. Raise Skeleton, she has done so. She can also use her Wraith passive for avoiding attacks, which she doesn't need to. Combat Awareness, Defense check, plus 24 rest of round. I think these things cost 1 either as well. I think there is not much she can use for her passive and her masteries. So let's just get down to the actual combat itself. Wait a second, she does have a vial of 3d6 acid damage in her belt, but let's save that for another time. Okay, creature has Venomous. I'll take note of that, and it's an undead. Venomous would mean that there will be a poison damage for every successful attack it deals, so that's fine. Okay, are we ready for the first turn? Athena goes first. Athena rolls a 65, which is just slightly above a combat skill by 1 point, which is not good. Let's roll for the Necropede. Necropede rolls a 6. Okay, let's roll on the defense table to see what is the action from the Necropede. I'll roll a d6. It rolls a 1. Your next attack receives an additional plus 10. Alright, so that concludes the first turn. We move on to Skeleton 1. Skeleton 1 rolls a 40, which is above. It has to roll 39 to be successful. 40 is off. And Necropede will roll a 13, which is a successful defense. Let's roll on the defense table. Rolls a 3. Your opponent receives the bleeding 1 condition. Oh, not again. Right, so now it's Skeleton 2's turn. He rolls a 96. Not a single hit yet, huh? And Necropede rolls a 22. That's a critical. That's bad. So a critical automatically wins the confrontation, and that means he will get to roll a 2d6 damage. But before that, let's see what action does it do. So let me roll a d6. It rolls a 2, which is Bone Slam. The Necropede slams its skeletal body onto a target, dealing d6 bludgeoning damage. Okay, so the damage is bludgeoning, and I will double this damage by rolling a 2d6 instead because it is a critical. So first of all, let me find out the body hit location. Holy. He rolls a 20, that's a critical. It hits the skeleton's head. In any case, that's a critical. I will roll a 2d6. I roll a 5, which is, whoa, this is really, really high. A 5 would be I believe that would be 2 points. Let me just double check to be sure. 2 points, that's correct. 2 damage, and I roll my second d6. A 3, so that's a 2 points. So that's a 1 point. So in total, that's 3 damage dealt to the skeleton, leaving it at 7 out of 10 health. Is there a double critical? I think I saw that on Seeker's Hollow's play, one of the recent sessions, but I don't think there's a double critical. So there we are. Let's move on to Skeleton 3. Hopefully we are able to do some damage to this Necropede. He rolls a 29, that's promising. And the Necropede rolls a 34. Oh, this is above. So Skeleton 3 successfully attacks. Let's see how much damage we deal. We are going to roll on a d6. No, before that, first of all, we'll roll for the body location, the hit location. I roll a 3, that would be Serpentoid. Let's see. That would be its body. Oh, so if I roll an 18, 19, or 20, it'll be striking the Serpentoid's head. So let's aim for 18, 19, or 20. So that's a body. And let's find out the amount of damage dealt. 6, wonderful. It's a really good roll. Thank you, Skeleton 3. So I believe that would be a 2 points of damage. Thus, Necropede is at 6 out of 8 health. Okay, so that sums up a single round. Every character has took its turn. We move on to round 2. So round 2, Athena strikes again. Let's see. Athena. Okay, I'm gonna roll on my D100. Athena rolls a 2. Wow, that's really low. And Necropede rolls a 68. That's way off, so Athena successfully attacks. Let's roll for the body part. A 3, that's its body. And let's roll on the d6. Oops. Okay, this counts as a 3. And I do have a d4 from the Weapon Master's passive. A 3 as well. So that would be an equivalent of a total of 2 damage. Bringing Necropede's health down to a 4 out of 8 health. Doing well. Oh, wait a second. For that, I think the Necropede needs to attack first. I have missed this out, so let's since I rolled that round, I'm just gonna keep that there. I'm gonna roll for Necropede, so that's still round 1. Let's go back to Necropede's attack. We will roll a D100 for him. That's a 52. Necropede. I will put Athena at the brunt. So he has a +10 to his next attack, which in any case, still out of its combat skill. It has a combat skill of 40. So 40 plus 10, that will be 50, and he rolls a 52, which is out of his combat skill. So let's roll for Athena's defense. Athena rolls a 27, which is great. So Athena, defense. And let's roll on the defense table. Athena rolls a 6, which is your next attack deals D10 damage plus D10 damage, which is wonderful. Ooh. Alright, and coming back to the next rounds, I'm gonna keep this intact. I'm not gonna do anything, so I'm gonna just add the modifier of D10 damage. Wow, this is fantastic. This is really fantastic. It rolls an 8, which is great. So converting the 8, a roll of 8, that would be a 3 damage. Wow, so effectively the Necropede is down to 1 out of 8 health. Okay, so it's Skeleton 2's turn. Skeleton 2 has a bleeding of 1 earlier, so now Skeleton 2 has a bleeding of 2, which means it has effectively taken 1 damage. Skeleton 1 will be at 9 out of 10 health. Now let's start the combat proper. He rolls a 54. Let's roll for the Necropede. Necropede rolls a 23. That's a successful defense. And we roll on the table, defense table. That's a 2. I think he has rolled it before. Reduce your opponent's armor by 1 in 1 random location until the end of combat. So there's no armor for my skeleton. So effectively there is no effect. I would not give Necropede a chance to roll again. I think it's pretty terrible. But nonetheless, we move on to Skeleton 2's turn. I can't wait to chop this Necropede down to pieces. So that's a 36. That's successful. That's a great combat skill roll. It's a really good roll. And let's roll for Necropede. Necropede rolls a 1. Okay, so that's a successful attack. And we roll on the hit location. As a 19, that's a hit. Wonderful. There's 1 armor, don't forget. And let's roll on a d6 to see. So I need a roll of... I need 2 damage to kill this Necropede. Okay, looking at the damage die roll and damage dealt table, I would need to roll a 5 to effectively kill the Necropede. So let's see. I roll a 6. Wonderful. Wonderful. It's been good rolls, good rolls. Good job. Good job. So we have managed to hit the head. I roll a 6. That's 2 damage, which in this case it's enough to already kill the Necropede. Let's roll for the other d6. I roll a 1, which is a 0, which is fine. So Necropede, death. Okay, so that's all. And before I celebrate the victory, I will have to take a look at the oversee influences. There's a penetrating of 1, which is fine. This doesn't affect me. There's corrupting, which is fine, doesn't affect me. And there's an unstable d8 arcane. So I have to roll for the magic resistance check. So I roll a 32. I think we have exceeded the magic resistance of 20, so we failed, and that means the arcane damage is effected on Athena. So let's roll the d8. rolls a 3, that would be a 1 damage dealt, 1 arcane damage dealt. Okay, so there we go. Athena would be at 16 out of 19 toughness. Okay, so she's at 16 of 19 at the end of the combat. There's a post-combat recovery for toughness, which we'll roll a d4 to see how much toughness will Athena recover from here, which is not too worried. She recovers a 4. We recover 4 points from here, bringing her health up to 19. Skeletons would be down in health, 7 upon 10. They will recover after every combat encounter, which I'm not too worried about. Alright, so there we are. We have completed the combat encounter with the Necropede. It's an excellent fight. What's coming up next would be rolling at the resources table for the Necropede. So let's roll for the resources. I can either find nothing, cooking supplies or crafting supplies, which are pretty mundane but much necessary. In any case, there's only one, which is not too great. Anyway, let's roll. I rolled a 9. So I find 1 crafting supply. And let's roll for a scavenge check. So let's roll, let's check whether she is successful for her scavenging check. 21, that is just slightly off her scavenge score of 20. So that's a failed scavenge check. She has nothing for this corridor to scavenge and she has not found anything here. So I think we are good with the game. I think we will just call it an end. But meanwhile, before that, as usual, let me update her experience points. So she would have basically a total of 570 experience points. Okay, and I think I'm pretty much done with this session. We have killed the Necropede. I've gained 1 crafting supply. We did a camp earlier on to recover the health, to give Athena some more mileage to play a few more games. And she has 3 skeletons with her still intact. So that's all for this session, and thank you so much for joining me in this session number 10.